Welcome back to another episode of Spirit of an Athlete. I'm your host, Amanda Smith, the creator of the Gutsy Chick Quiz at gutsychickquiz.com. On this episode, I interviewed Renee Yomtob. She is near and dear to my heart because she was a college athlete volleyball player, labeled as a head case by her coaches. I can relate. And she became a yogi, which sent her down the rabbit hole of becoming a coach. In this episode, you'll learn about neuro-linguistic programming, the mental emotional release technique, hypnosis, and how Renee helps the athletes she works with to be their best. I hope you enjoy this episode. Renee, thank you so much for being on Spirit of an Athlete and sharing not only your experience in college volleyball, but all that you do now to help athletes as well as just humans, general statement. So thank you for being here.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.
I'm excited for this one because you're a yogi and I finally get to talk about my yogi stuff too. It's exciting.
Yes.
But before we go there, share a story from your college volleyball experience.
The first story that really comes rushing to the mind, to the top of the surface, is it was the first time that my college team went to nationals.
Yes.
So, yes, it was the first time we went to nationals. I was playing a little bit. I would get subbed in for one rotation in the back row. You can't tell, but I'm 5'5", so I only played back row.
Okay. Back row specialist for the win.
Yes. And so this was probably my second year at the program, and we were in pool play. And at nationals, you had to rank the first in your pool, maybe the second, in order to move to bracket play. And we had to win this game. This was our third pool play game. We had to win it in order to move on because we were tied in our pool so far. It went to 5 sets. It was the 5th set, and I let a ball drop on game-winning point in the back corner.
No.
I got stepped in for my one little rotation. I got to serve and then play back, middle back.
Yep.
And I can picture it. It was over to my left. It was in that corner. And I just watched it drop. And it stuck with me for so long because I'm pretty quick. I'm quick. I'm fast. That's that was my position. I could get those all day in practice. And so that experience stuck with me because I knew it wasn't a physical limitation. It's because I got subbed in. I knew it was game point, and I knew that they were going to push it there and that it was going to be on me to get it. And so it just stuck with me for so long. Even the next year we went back to nationals and that memory was flooded. I was playing more at that time and I had to really focus on pushing that aside. Which at the time I couldn't really. I was such a head case in college. My nickname, you were too?
Gosh, yeah. Those are the exact words that my coaches used. Across the board, all the colleges I went to, head case.
Yeah, it's my nickname when I came in my first year, I redshirted, was Jitter Pig.
Oh my gosh.
The jitter part, because I was just
go, 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 go.
My feet would never settle, and you need to be settled in order to react well. Back there. And so I was all over the place. The pig part was because I spilt on myself a lot. So that had nothing to do with my mental. But
yeah. Oh yeah. Oh my gosh. Okay. So I have to point this out. 5'5" is very small for volleyball. I'm 5'8". And of course, when you looked at the roster, they always put me as 5'9".
Of course.
5'7" and 3/4. I'm not even close. But whatever. But to be that short for volleyball and a back row specialist, you had no choice but to be fast. Why the jitters, though? What was the thing about constantly moving your feet? I can see constantly moving your upper body, but if we're constantly letting our heels pop up off the floor, you pointed it out already. You can't get to the ball nearly as fast.
Yeah. Looking back at the time, I didn't know this. I was trying to, pump myself up before games. I was listening to like this type of music, and looking back now, it was like, this is the type of music I needed,
Oh my
like
God,
to really ground. And you probably know too, like I was so afraid of making a mistake. I was so afraid of, getting yelled at, getting pulled, letting
Yeah.
my team down, all of those things that I was like constantly kind of in fight or flight. Like I was not in the parasympathetic nervous system where you can access flow state. I was like zeroed in on this like tiger chasing me. And this tiger was just the ball on the other side of the net. And so I was like, my eyes were all over the place. I wasn't settled. I just didn't have the tools at that time to like find that flow and to realize I could like actually do better if I was calmer.
Okay. So the music that I listen to, as a pitcher, especially, and as a basketball player, not so much volleyball. Volleyball. So I also played volleyball. Volleyball was not the sport where we were like rock on. But do you remember jock jams?
Do I remember jock jams? Yes.
Okay. So that was my basketball music. And then for softball as a pitcher, I was listening to heavy, dark metal, like Nine Inch Nails, dark metal. And I had the same problem. I didn't realize at the time, and this is where becoming a yogi really helps. At the time, I was deep, dark, angry softball and basketball player. I was more of a football player on the basketball court. Volleyball, I played all the way around. I was a middle hitter and then back row specialist as well. So
wow, not a lot of middles play back row. That's pretty amazing.
No, exactly. That's why I bring that up.
Yes.
But I was also for softball, I was hot corner, so third baseman, and a shortstop as well as a pitcher. So my range was there. I could easily get to those back corners just like we were just talking about. But the music brought me down. And I was the same as you. I was constantly like bounce, 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 bounce to get to where I was going to go. And I did the same thing in softball and, as much as I could in basketball, but I was a post in basketball. I'm a tiny post for basketball.
Yeah.
I was a linebacker. So they loved me in the middle. Exactly. Okay. So jitter pig. I have to use that now. So you were jitter pig freshman year or first year that you played. So you redshirted the first year. First year that you played, you guys went to nationals. You were the jitter pig. Sophomore year, did we move out of jitter pig mode?
I didn't hear that nickname again until my senior year. All my past teammates brought signs for my senior night. And I was like, oh my gosh, I totally forgot about that. So I think on, people looking in, I definitely looked like I was getting better. I definitely improved my junior and senior year. What's that?
Your skills got better.
My skills got better. And I don't know if people knew how in my head I really was, and at the time I didn't really either because like my stats were there. But looking back now, I'm like, whoa, if I just knew what I knew, which is always the case. If I just knew what I know now back then, like it would have been night and day,
Right? Hindsight's 2020 always. Going into so I played Division I softball and then switched to Division II and going from Division I. So those coaches definitely labeled me as head case, and to the point that it was I was getting abused mentally, emotionally, and physically by the coaches. So I switched schools to a Division II school, and they quickly found out I was a head case, and they were very proactive at trying to help me figure out how to solve this head case issue. And I was getting closer to finally having prefrontal cortex fully engaged. I was right around 24, 25 years old when we finally have the chooser on board. And the rest of the team, of course, was, 18 to 21. And the coaches were always like, don't be asking Amanda to go get you alcohol. I don't like drinking, so that wasn't something that I was like, yes, I will. No. I but also in that development of my prefrontal cortex, I also finally got to that point where I could understand when I was in my head and
Mm.
that fight flight constant state of fight flight and worried about losing my position or any of those things. I got to the point kind of where you get in your 40s where you're
Mm.
just like, yeah, whatever.
Yes.
Whatever. So at that point, I feel like that was where I could finally drop in and discover, okay, the music that I need is way
Mm.
more chill. Xavier Rudd, my all-time favorite
Oh,
artist, became
yes.
my walkout song. And the girls who were on the bench, I love this. So I'm out warming up and I'm seeing them do this. Peace signs up, waving back and forth
Yes.
because my music was that kind of grounded, calm
Yes.
place that I finally discovered I needed to be in,
Wow, good for you. That's amazing to set yourself up like that.
right? And, now I know way more about why that worked for me.
Of course, to have the awareness, I think, is a really essential like first step that really gets overlooked, I think, in the
Yes.
mindset and mental performance space. I see a lot of the times it's like put your head down and get it done or think positively and
Oh,
sure, there's a
uh,
time for all of that. And you really need to like build the awareness of where things start to kind of go off the rails or like do you have the awareness of that you're in your head in this moment or that you're feeling some sort of way. Because until you have that, you won't know when it is to change it. So it doesn't
right?
matter if you have the tools, if you don't have if you don't build that self awareness relationship with yourself.
I definitely and this is a mental note for me. I wanna go back to that point that you made about having emotions and being able to process them quickly as athletes. We don't have a choice.
Mm-hmm.
But first we gotta find out, when did you become a yogi?
Mm. I didn't really start practicing yoga. I attribute it to I think it was 2016 is really when I dove in. I did a little bit in sports. Mainly, I focused on asana as a way of like stretching.
Yep,
It was just
the
the
movement
physical
only.
poses. But really, I dove into what yoga can do when I did a 10-day silent meditation retreat in
Ooh.
2016.
Oof.
And yeah, I'll tell you, I went kind of blind. I was working for a tech company at the time. And so the CEO was really rad and, we had
Mhm.
kombucha on tap and like healthy organic snacks. And so he's like, hey, anybody who wants to come to this retreat gets a paid flight, paid time in Hawaii, And so I was
Oh
like,
my gosh.
yeah, I want to go to Hawaii for free. And I
Right?
hadn't really meditated too much at that time. So I was like, I'm just going to figure it out. And this retreat was amazing and profound. And it was 10 days of being fully silent, meaning no reading, no writing, no electronics. It was with other people, but we were to live as if we lived alone. So no eye contact, no saying thank you for people who like gave us lunch and food and we meditated, you know, and practiced yoga 6 to 7 hours a day for 10 days. And that was really my first big aha into what this world of meditation and mindfulness could do. It was some of the highest highs I've ever felt and some of the absolute lowest lows. And my biggest takeaway was that it's not so scary in there. And actually, that's where the answers are. I kept looking outside of myself for everything. I've always been big into personal development and stuff, and I'd reach for podcasts and books, and I still do. It's still super fun. Um, but I was like, oh, this place I've been avoiding, going to these deep, dark corners of my mind, like that's actually where the light is. Like that's where the answers are.
Oh my gosh. You dove into the deep end. I mean,
Yes.
to go from not really ever meditating before, understanding what flow state is, probably from sports, but never meditating, to a 10-day that's girlfriend.
Yeah.
Whoa.
I've talked to athletes about it since, and maybe you can relate. I feel like a lot of athletes are like 0 to 100.
Yes.
Like it's like I'm either sprinting or I'm resting. And so it just was really on brand for me to just
Right?
like go
All in.
and yeah.
I love that. But at the same time, did you have an aha moment around that very thing while you were there?
Around the being 0 to
0 to
100.
100. Yeah.
I don't remember there. I don't remember a big aha around that moment. There
Okay.
was so much, my mind was so busy the entire time,
Yeah.
and not getting to write anything out, not getting to read, not distracting myself at all. Basically, it was learning how to not get attached to the story. So I would have like some really neat things pop up where I was like, ooh, I need to remember that. And then, of course, I didn't, because that's just like me attaching to needing
To remember it.
to attach to the story.
Yes.
And so it was just fully surrendering to, okay, well, what's my mind going to show me today? I guess we're just on this roller coaster.
Yes. This is where people get really confused about what meditation is.
Yeah.
People think that meditation is, I have to turn my brain off.
Mm.
Ugh. So you just highlighted, it's not about turning the brain off. It's about noticing what's going on in there. Becoming the watcher is my first meditation coach. That was her mantra, become the watcher, and then
Mm-hmm.
become the watcher of the dying ego. And
Cool.
yes. And when you finally get to a point in your practice that you can just observe what the thoughts are moving through, non attachment is so easy. But then, of course, we live in society.
Yeah.
So, how did you reintegrate yourself after that particular retreat? Because I'm going to guess that that was probably more daunting than it was diving headlong into a 10-day silent retreat.
Yeah, there was the day that we could all talk again. And I remember all of us just like didn't really want to, and then coming home, I think I spent one more full day there, where with people who were doing what I was doing. And so it was like really gentle. Everyone would just be like, how did you sleep last night? Like very minimal, only speaking when we had something to say, which is like a whole lesson in its own.
Right?
And yeah, coming back was very jarring. I was like,
Mm.
wow, it's so loud in all the ways, like
Yes.
I'm just taking it in, like all the senses are just overwhelmed and heightened. And it was a lot.
I could imagine.
Yeah,
Did this kind of spur you into what you do now?
it did. It, yeah, absolutely
Yes.
did. Good segue, because yes, I was like, oh wow, like everything I've really been searching for is just deepening this, relationship with myself and getting silent. And that led me to, quitting my job and going down to San Diego. And um, so I had kind of the yoga and meditation piece of it that really blew my mind open. And then when I was in San Diego, I was diagnosed with narcolepsy, which is neurological disease. Doctors told me I'd live with it forever. And it was not a fun couple years there. I was trying to really figure out some ways that I could attack this holistically. Narcolepsy, they say, is like a 24-hour disease for those who don't know. It's basically you don't really get deep sleep at night, so you never fully recover. And then during the day, you just need to sleep a lot. So it was totally affecting my life. I was experiencing sensations of like depression and anxiety, and I was doing all the things. I tried like a ton of different forms of therapy. I saw a naturopath. I was on like a bajillion supplements. I tried all sorts of diets to try to just like feel even a little bit better. And I hit my lowest point, or for me, what felt like my lowest point, when I just fully detached from everything. And there's like such a clear moment where my college team does an alumni tournament every year where all my teammates get to come back. They're
Awesome.
some of my favorite people. So I was back with all of my like dear teammates. And I just remember sitting across from a couple of my best friends, and they're explaining some big things going on in their life. And I just remember the moment of like, I don't care, like being fully detached from anything happening, from my future, from like the people around me was the worst. It was worse than feeling low,
Yeah.
And so I went back and to San Diego, and I went and saw a doctor, and I said, I don't care what you put me on. Like, I can't do this anymore. And so this doctor said, okay, when you get back, because I had a 2-week trip planned to go to this training. He's like, when you get back, we'll put you on 2 uppers during the day to keep you awake, and then an antidepressant at night to help you sleep. And you'll be on this forever, and you'll feel about 10% better. And I was like, I'll take it. I need to feel better. Then I went away to this training.
I
And
can't wait to hear this.
day 1 of this training, I was challenged. Day 1 from this training, the trainers from Stage offered the idea that, 99% of disease is psychosomatic, meaning it starts in the mind.
Yep.
And I sat there and I was like, you're probably right. Narcolepsy is part of the 1%. I was sitting there and I'm like, yeah, those other diseases probably do start in the mind, and like mine's real.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. And so they keep like saying these things, right? And I'm just like staking claim and getting all defensive, and my wall's coming up. And I'm like, no, my problem's real though. Like my disease is real. And then I had like the biggest aha that I think changed the course of my life. And I realized I could either feel better or I could be right. But in this moment, I couldn't have both. And so I decided, let me just try it. Worst case, I'm right back where I started. Best case, I don't feel like this. And after that first day, all my symptoms went away and they've stayed away. And so leaving that training, I was like, oh my gosh, like everybody needs to feel this or know that you can feel better, know that you can, really have control over the things that happen to you, how you feel, your future. So that's, and then I just dove in from there. I ended up working with the training company because it was a small team. We went around the US and trained all sorts of people, doctors, therapists, C-suites, first responders, average folks, coaches, therapists, everyone. And then I really just dove into coaching because I was like, I want to help with this deep impact. Like it's so profound. It's so fulfilling to see people go from like stuck, frustrated, like just frustrated, tired of feeling tired that they're like, they know they could be doing better and they're not doing it. And frustrated, especially for athletes, because they're doing so much, they're such driven folks. They'll like spend extra time doing reps. They'll, add another training day in the gym, and to still not see it, like come to life during games or practices is the most frustrating, like, it's the most frustrating feeling. And so to be able to help them help themselves, right? Be like, this is something you can do. Here are some tools, and like, you can feel better and you will. It's the best. So that was a ramble, but that was like my maybe origin story.
Love that. I've just had this conversation with my 10-year-old. Everybody has stories, and we love to cling to those stories. And those stories are what, as we get older, we love to tell stories. This is something I've noticed now that I'm in my 40s. I'm like, okay, have I told you this story? Like, that's where I start.
Yeah.
And it's part of our makeup. But at the same time, unwinding, unpacking, and being able to see those as a story and not of me. I think that's one of the most powerful tools that we can give ourselves. And like you said, coach others through once we know how to do it.
Yes. The stories are what get us in trouble, right? Similar as meditation. It's not, the sensation isn't the problem. It's the meaning that we're giving the sensation. There's this exercise I'll teach my athletes, and we call it first circle, second circle. The first circle is the facts, like what happened. Second circle is like the story that we give it. right? And so helping, like we talked about awareness, building the awareness of like, where are we in the second circle and where is that not serving us? And can we strip it back and be like, okay, what's actually happened? Like without emotion, without this like noggin of ours getting in the way, like what are the facts? Because from there we can like move on from neutrality, right? It's the story that gets us in trouble sometimes. Most times.
Absolutely. Most times, yes, because that's where emotion sits.
Mhm.
Facts are logic. Facts are this is the truth. And story is embellishment.
Mhm.
Story is, and that's where emotion tends to flow in. And generally, when we have something horrible going on in our body, we're also attached to that emotion. That's
Mhm.
the thing that I find the most. And it's teaching people how to detach from that emotion so that they can go, oh, okay, these are the real, this is the real thing. So I love that that's something you use. That's a phenomenal tool.
Yes.
And I love that. I've heard of the circle concept where we've got the facts in the middle and then everything ripples out from there, but I've never heard it as the first circle, second circle, and that's so much simpler.
It's such a practice, you know. My husband and I do it all the time. He'll be like, is that first circle or second circle? And I'm like, God, you're right. Okay. You know, and it's great to have
Oh.
somebody call us on our stuff.
Heck yes, and especially our partners. Having partners that are able to show us, and not in a reactive way, in a nice way, which
And
is
nice.
neutral. To me, nice means neutral. Don't give me any emotions behind it. Don't be snarky about it. Just be like, "Did you notice this?"
Yeah,
Ah.
I know. It's
I
really,
can't. But my husband is like that. I can't. I am so unbelievably grateful that he is in my life
yeah.
because we both agreed when we got married, and this was part of our vows. We are leveling each other up. That's
Oh,
what we're here for.
that's great. That's a good agreement to have.
Yes,
Yeah.
and to remember 11
Mhm.
years later.
Yeah. Right. That's the key.
That is the
Putting
key,
it front
and
and center.
yes, and consistency around that, because if it falls away in between, like you say it when you're getting married, and then all of a sudden it just rears its ugly head randomly 10 years later, you're like, "Where did that come from?" Right?
Totally.
It's startling.
Yeah.
But
Startling.
it
Yeah.
is, but to have it consistently throughout, that's been the gift. That's the true gift. Ah.
Yes. Yeah.
All right, Jitter Pig.
If my coach watches this, he's going to really get a kick out of it.
I am certain of it. I love it. Those kind of nicknames stick. They totally stick.
They do.
I wasn't blessed with any of those kind of nicknames. Everybody just called me by my last name, and now they call me by my last name, and I'm like, "Hey, it's Smith now. It's not Richie."
Yeah. They're sticky, those last name ones, you
Yes.
know? Yeah.
Yes, yes. And when you get married, and it's a thing. My best friend still calls me by my maiden name, and I love that because she's like
Yeah.
the only one I'm okay hearing it from. Because
Yeah.
now I'm like, "Hey, my last name is Smith. It's been Smith for 11 years."
Yeah. That's sweet.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay, so some of the other trainings that I want to highlight that you have done: neuro-linguistic programming, mental emotional release, hypnosis. What
Yeah.
was what was the first one? That training that you did that unlocked things? Was it
Mm.
neuro-linguistic programming or hypnosis?
That one was neuro-linguistic programming. So that first day was NLP. And then we dove later that week into mental emotional release. And then the following week was hypnosis. So the training, I got all of it for, but we started with, you know, NLP, suggestive languaging, persuasive languaging, working with the unconscious mind is really the foundation for, you know, all these other
All the rest of it.
modalities. So we had to start there.
Yeah.
But even just with that foundational one, that's what had these symptoms go away. You know, it's really profound because what neurolinguistic programming is, if we look at it, neuro, the mind, linguistic, language, right? So you're working with the language of the mind, and specifically the unconscious mind, which is really the one driving the ship. Like consciously, we can want something. And this is what I see with athletes often. Consciously, they'll have a goal, but is there something unconsciously that's preventing the behavior that it takes to get to the goal? Like maybe you see this with your folks too, where they're like, you know, I'm going to get up at 5 a.m. I'm going to do this like intricate morning routine. I'm going to get in an extra training session. And then 5 a.m. rolls around and they're like, snooze, snooze until 6:30, snooze until
Bye.
7, right?
Yep.
And it's because there's something at the unconscious level, whether it's a belief that I'll never be good enough anyway, or a fear of failing if they really try, or any number of things that they've picked up along the way that's lodged and stuck in the unconscious that's affecting our conscious behavior and our ability to like really reach that potential and reach our goals. And so that's what we do with NLP, mental emotional release. Hypnosis is really like get to that unconscious mind and clear up whatever needs to be cleared up so that consciously you can wake up at 5 a.m. if you want to. Like if that's what it takes to reach your goals, you're like, of course I can do this because there's nothing there preventing you.
I love that. So learning that sound and rhythmic speech go straight through your filter into your subconscious made me change the music I listen to and the cadence I carry when I speak. Because if we're talking in rhymes, whatever's coming through in that rhyme is going to go straight into your subconscious. When you do NLP and mental emotional release technique, are we bringing it to the conscious mind or are we just changing the subconscious?
Good question. So with NLP, with neuro-linguistic programming, it doesn't necessarily need to come to the conscious mind. You're just kind of like tweaking. You know, I like to think of our unconscious as like our cute little toddler selves, and they're trying so hard, like they're trying the best they can.
Yep.
But you can just like redirect and reframe them, right? Like you can use all this like ninja language to where at the unconscious level, they're like, oh, yeah, I guess I hadn't thought about it that way, you know? And the toddler's like, sure, I'll go to bed at 8. I love going to bed at 8. You know, when they were like trying to go to bed at 10 and they're just so cute. You just want to like, yeah. So you language ninja. So that's more that process is I use NLP just pretty much throughout entire sessions because it's just conversational. Mental emotional release is a guided process that works with going to the root cause of issues. So, and again, it's all unconscious. So where maybe traditional therapy would say, okay, you know, was there another time that you felt afraid? And they're like, you know, now that I think about it, I was afraid when I was, I don't know, 8 or something. The unconscious mind goes back to these things that you're not even like fully aware of what happened. And it allows you to let go through this guided process, working with what's called your timeline. Because we all experience time a little differently, you know? Yep. So you go back, it does feel kind of hypnotic. You know, the guided process when you're in it, it does have some parallels to hypnosis. But the reason why it works so quickly and so well is that it goes to the root. You know, maybe not 8, maybe you were like 3 and your unconscious mind just held on to it. And you don't even really know what happened, but that's what's causing this thing today. You know, it's not really this thing. It's like what happened way back.
Yep.
Yeah. And then hypnosis is really lovely and it's more passive, right? You can just kind of sit there and your unconscious mind gets to just follow the post-hypnotic suggestions and the rhythm of the voice, and you kind of get lost, but you also are aware of what's happening. You know, it's really, we give hypnosis recordings to our athletes just as like, hey, if you need like a little 10-15 minute break during the day, just pop in those headphones and like, you know, it's a really great passive way to see the change too.
Yeah. You've got me thinking about yoga nidra and how, yes, I am such a fan of yoga nidra. One of my favorite teachers, Jeremy Wolf here in Denver, his voice is magic. And the process that you go through, it always starts the same. You remember that part and then poof, you're gone. And the magic that happens with that. So with yoga nidra, 15 minutes equals 3 hours of sleep. With hypnosis, is it the same?
It's, you know, I actually haven't found a study that equates it like that. I know that your brain wavelength drops into similar Yes,
Yep.
at certain times. Like in yoga nidra, it hits a few different wavelengths depending on where you are in the process. And hypnosis, kind of the idea is that you're just
Off.
dropped and you're just kind of like in it, you know? And so there are times that there are parallels. The first time my yoga teacher took me through yoga nidra, I was like, this feels like hypnosis. Like this feels so trancy, you know? And it kind
Exactly.
of works additionally on like a spiritual, you know, level too.
Yes.
It kind of has that depth to it too. I'm with you. It does feel so similar. Yeah. It's
I-
the best. And I love it. I do it personally a couple times a week. And we give some stuff to our athletes because they really like it on long travel days. Do you remember long
Yes.
bus rides? I
Oh,
think our
God,
longest was like 12 hours. And at the end, you're just kind of like road buzzy, you know, because you've been driving. And so they'll do it at the end of long travel days to like get present to their new location, or in between double days, you know, right there to like you said, get that rest in such a short amount of time. It's a really, pardon the pun, but slept on technique, you know?
Yes,
It's
it
amazing.
is. It really is. And I love that we get to bring it to light here on the episode because people don't know about these techniques. I'm certain they've heard of hypnosis. Yoga Nidra is one of those that not many people have heard of unless you're a yogi and you've tapped into all the things and gone down the rabbit hole, because that
Yeah,
one's kind of down in the rabbit hole.
it's pretty down there.
Yeah.
I'm very happy that it's getting a broader reach too. Do you know Andrew Huberman?
Yes.
So he started rebranding Yoga Nidra as non-sleep deep rest. Have you seen that?
Oh my gosh, I love this.
Yeah. And so somebody asked him, they're like, hey, yeah, non-sleep deep rest that you keep talking about really sounds a lot like Yoga Nidra. And he's like, you know, it is. It is the same. But he knew that like unless you're kind of into that, like, yeah, to me,
Yoga
yoga
world.
isn't woo-woo anymore. But like some people, yoga is a little out there, where Yoga Nidra might not reach a ton of people. But if a neuroscientist rebrands it as non-sleep deep rest, like so many people are happy to do it now, you know, that I'm like, sure, rebrand, you know, however it can help people.
Right? Whatever it takes. Oh my gosh, I love that. Okay, I'm gonna have to go check a podcast out because I love his podcast and see if he's talking about it. I'm definitely searching on that because that hits me in the feels. That's a good one.
Yeah, it's great. I'll
Thank you,
send you a
Andrew.
link.
Yes, please. Thank you.
Yeah.
And I'll include it in the show notes so you guys can listen to it too. Okay, Renee, where can people find you on the internet so that they can learn more amazing things like we have talked about today?
Our website, athleticmentalperformance.com, has all the different ways that you can work with us. We also have a blog on there, or just good old Instagram could be a way, and then LinkedIn. So we're kind of on all the platforms. We piece together different content across all of them, so we can really broaden that reach and, you know, scream it from the rooftops.
No doubt. And hopefully this podcast episode grabs somebody's attention and they come and find you. Just one is my goal every single time.
Yes.
We change one person's lives. We've done our job.
Absolutely.
I seriously loved this conversation. I want to have another one because I definitely want to dive deeper into how you work with your athletes. What ages do you work with for athletes?
We work with quite a broad range. We started with college and professional athletes, and then we have some youngins in our life. So we've recently gotten to work with like 12-year-olds and 16-year-olds just because of our nieces and nephews. And that's been like a really beautiful, different level of like heart fulfillment working with kiddos. And I will say the majority of our programs, though, are geared more towards that elite level of college or professional.
I love that.
Yeah.
And we've definitely got some of those listeners on here, have had several guests that are at that elite level. So they're going to find it. They're going to find you. And I will love to reconnect with you and have episode 2 with Renee Yomtob.
Oh, thanks, Amanda. I'm sure we could geek out even more.
Yes, absolutely. Oh my gosh, diving deeper into all of the things that you know. Yeah, we could definitely geek out. Renee, thank you again.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening to Spirit of an Athlete podcast. If you're struggling with your own gut issues and want more direction, you can get an initial body scan from Amanda at bodywhisperhealing.com. In 20 minutes, you can find out what's wrong, get clarity, map the path forward, and get on track to get back in your game. If this episode hits the spot, please let us know by rating, reviewing, and sharing it with a friend. Subscribe now to hear more inspiring stories from other female college athletes who overcame their health issues. Want more, Amanda? Get inspired by finding more at bodywhisperhealing.com.